Hello everyone, how are you? I hope so that you all are fine and happy. Myself Sunil Pawar welcomes you back for the new session of 11th class biology of New Catholic Mission High Secondary School Chabua. As you know that we are discussing about the chapter 3 of 11th class, that is the kingdom Plantae, right? As you know that in our previous chapter we just talk about the Bryophytes and the algae, right? And now in this chapter we are going to talk about the Tracheophytes. Actually Tracheophytes is divided into three parts right now, that is the Pteridophyta, second is the which one? Right, it is the Gymnosperm, okay, and third one, that is the Angiosperm, okay. So today we are just going to discuss the Pteridophytes and Gymnosperm. So this is the third part, second part of part chapter 3, okay. So now here we are starting with the Tracheophytes. What do you mean by the Tracheophytes? Just keep this thing in mind, that is the vascular plants, okay. As you observe from algae to Bryophytes, okay, you saw that somewhat modification in the plants is observed, not completely, but division of labor is just started in the last point of this one thing, right. So in this one Tracheophytes there is clear cut distinction of work, or what you say, the division of labor is observed, okay. And in this one the body is also divided into three parts. So for this one thing the parts become distinct from each other, okay. So therefore they need to carry them, transport them, the materials which produced or which used, right. So therefore a developed vascular system is there, okay. So because of the presence of this vascular tissue, these are called as Tracheophytes, clear. So what is the Tracheophyta? The Greek meaning, if we are taking that, the trachees, that means the windpipe, and the phyton means the plant. Simply the plants contain windpipe. Windpipe, it doesn't mean it is responsible to carry the air, okay, but these are the tubular structures, tracheids, very fine capillary structures which is present in the middle of the root and stem, who is responsible for transportation, okay. So that's why we call them the Tracheophytes, and it is nearly observed that this is the most dominating organisms in the plant world, okay. It include near about 2,75,000 species, okay. So the reason of this dominance is vascular tissue, okay, because it plays such an important role in the transportation of the material, okay, from one part to other part, okay. So now first we are going to discuss the first group of this one thing, that is called as the Pteridophytes, clear. So these Pteridophytes are primitive seedless vascular plants. Remember two words, seedless vascular plants, okay. The second category when we will discuss, that is Gymnosperm and Angiosperm, then these two will have seeds, but these Pteridophytes are seedless vascular plants, also called the cryptogams, okay. Cryptos means hidden and gamus means the wedding, okay, wedding, clear. That means the process of fusion of gametes is performed in the hidden part of the prothallus or the thallus, clear. Hidden means what? They are not exposed, okay. So that's why it is called as the cryptogams, clear. So remember, these Pteridophytes are also termed as the cryptogams, and these have conspicuous sporophytic plants body, inconspicuous independent gametophytes with antheridia and partially embedded Archegonia having 4-row neck cells, clear. So remember this word conspicuous and the inconspicuous, it means that they are not attractive, they are not noticeable, they are not fully exposed, okay. So that's why we are calling by this name. And one more thing, their special feature is there, neither their sporophyte is too much developed nor their gametophytes is too much developed, okay. So they have conspicuous sporophytic plant body, that means sporophytes are well observed and exposed, while these gametophytes are hidden in nature. Okay, and what is their reproductive organ? The male reproductive organ is antheridia and the female reproductive organ is the archegonia. Clear? So this archegonia is remain dipped in the thallus body. Clear? And as we discussed in the earlier part, this archegonium is clearly having 4 guard cell on the top, then the neck like structure, okay, and at the bottom there is the ovary which contain a single egg cell. Clear? So this is especially this 4-rowed neck cell. The neck cells are arranged in a linear way, 4 neck cells. This is the speciality. Clear? The term pteridophytes was first coined by the Haeckel in 1866. Okay, and there are about 13,000 species of pteridophytes have been reported, and they were perhaps the first land plants evolved during the Ordovician period. Okay, so this is just the transformation of plants from aquatic habitat to land or terrestrial one. Clear? So now you will find the modification or the adaptation for the terrestrial life, right? Now here we are generally discussing about the characteristic feature of this pteridophytes, which are the main plant body is sporophytic. What is the feature of sporophytic? They are diploid in nature. Okay, then usually differentiate into root, stem and leaves. Body is clearly divided into 3 parts: root, stem and leaf. Clear? Root is just work as an anchorage, it is work as the hold fast, it is responsible to grip and hold the soil to keep that upper part erect in nature. Okay, and the stem is, it is just responsible for the transportation of material. Okay, the water and mineral which absorbed by the roots and the organic food material which is prepared by the photosynthetic part of the plant, that is the leaves. Okay, now then the dominant phase of life cycle is sporophyte, that means main plant body, alternation of generation is observed, but the main plant body is sporophyte, and gametophyte which develop there depends on this one, and they are temporary in nature. Okay, and they are vascular plants. What is the meaning of vascular plant? That means they have vascular tissue like xylem and phloem. Clear? And the conducting tissue, the xylem and phloem are well developed. Clear? The xylem like vessels and the phloem like companion cells. You know that in the when we talk about the components of the xylem and phloem, then you know that these two are the complex tissues. Okay, and each tissue is contain 4 components. Just like xylem is containing 4 components: xylem parenchyma, xylem fibers. Okay, then what is the 2 one? Tracheids and vessels, right? While when we talk about the phloem, then phloem is also containing phloem fibers, phloem parenchyma, and then the 2 one, that is the sieve tubes and the companion cells. So you can see that here the vessels are lacking in the xylem and the companion cells are lacking in the phloem, right? Then sporophyte produce spores which germinate to produce the gametophyte. Clear? Sporophyte will undergoes in the meiotic cell division and it will produce the haploid spores. Okay, and after germination of these spores they will produce something haploid gametophyte. Clear? Now the spores are produced in special sac-like structure which is called as sporangium. We know that the bulbous structure which present at the anteriormost part of the that is the thread-like structure. Okay, which is responsible to produce the spore is called a sporangium, right? Then the sporangia in some cases from compact spore producing the strobilus or cone. Clear? Strobilus or cone means what? They are having a cone like structure of the leafy structure where they will produce this one thing. So it is the strobilus and the cones. Clear? Then the gametophytic phase is of short duration and is converted with the production of sex organ and the gametes. Clear? So remember, this gametophytic phase which is haploid in nature, it is only there for the production of gametes. Okay, and this gametes actually produce in the sex organs. And what are the sex organ? Main sex organ is called as antheridium sorry, and the female sex organ is called as archegonium, right? Then the sexual reproduction is oogamous. What is the meaning of oogamous? Where the male gamete is motile, small, okay, and the female gamete is large, non-motile and oval shape in nature. That is called as oogamous. Clear? The sex organ is called antheridium and the female sex organ is called as archegonium, right? And there is clear-cut alternation of sporophytic and gametophytic phase in their life cycle, and the phenomenon is called the alternation of generation. As you know that for the normal life they are having sporophytic diploid generation, and for the gamete formation they are having haploid gametophytic generation, and alternately they are replacing each other, and this way they continue their life cycle. So remember, a clear-cut alternation of generation is observed. Now one by one we are taking this one in the detail one. They are like the habitat. What is the habitat? A place which provide the better facility for the development, for their flourishing, for their reproduction, for their multiplication, okay, and food and shelter. So the pteridophytes are found in cool, damp, shady places, though some may flourish well in sandy soil conditions, and some members like Azolla, Salvinia, Marsilia species are there. Okay, so remember, they needed the cool and damp, shady places. See that they are just transferring themselves from, the life is transferring from where? Water to land. So here they cannot survive directly in the very dry condition. So that's why they needed this one thing. Then the main body, the size varies from a fraction of centimeter in the form of the meters. Okay, they're like that. If you observe the Azolla, then it is hardly few centimeter. Okay, while these ferns, they are nearly 20 meters in length. Clear? The main plant body is Sporophyte, which is differentiated into true root, stem and leaves, and this organ possesses a well differentiated vascular tissue. The leaves are small, okay, and is in Selaginella. If you observe, it is the large in while in the ferns, if you observe, then it is the large in nature. Then we talk about the vascular tissue. These are xylem and phloem and present throughout the body, and the xylem consists of the tracheids and phloem is made up of sieve cells and the albuminous cells. As you know that the companion cells are absent, right? Now then we talk about the sporophylls. Okay, what are the sporophylls? Who is responsible to perform the photosynthesis in this one? Okay, the sporophytes bear the sporangia that are subtended by the leaf-like appendages called the sporophyll. Clear? So here for the asexual reproduction they are used to produce this one thing. Okay, in some cases sporophylls may form the distinct compact structure that is called the strobili or the cones. Clear? You can see that this Selaginella and equisitums, they are having this strobili and cone, and the sporangia produce the spores by meiosis in the spore mother cell. So these sporophylls are basically diploid in nature. Then later on, at the time of the formation of the spores, they undergo in which division? Reductional division. Okay, that is the meiosis, who is responsible to produce the haploid cells. Clear? So this Selaginella, this equisitum, Salvinia and the ferns, here you can see that these are generally called as the sporophylls, who is phyllis structure, that means the flattened structure, who is responsible for the production of the spores, is called as sporophylls. Now then here we are going to talk about the spores. The spores germinate to give rise to inconspicuous, small but the multicellular free living, mostly photosynthetic thalloid gametophytes called the prothallus. Clear? A flattened structure, okay, which is having the parenchymatous tissue and generally responsible for the photosynthesis. Clear? And in majority of the pteridophytes, all the spores are of similar kind, and these plants are called as the homosporous, when whatever the spores which produce, these all are similar in nature. These genera like Selaginella and Salvinia, which produce the two kinds of spores, the macro and the microspores, and these are called as heterosporous in nature. That means in which the two or more than two type of spores will produce, that is called as heterosporous. Okay. Now then we come to discuss the gametophyte. The thalloid gametophyte or the prothallus require the cool, damp, shady places to grow, and the megaspores and the microspores germinate and give rise to the female and the male gametophyte respectively. As from the sporophylls, the haploid spores will disperse, and when they get the favorable condition they will germinate, and through this germination they will produce this microspores and the megaspores. Okay. Now the female gametophyte in this plant is retained on the parental sporophyte for viable periods, and in most ferns prothallus is green and autotrophic in nature, and in heterosporous ferns the female gametophyte depends on food stored by the megaspores in nature. Okay, so basically the female gametophyte depends on the sporophyte while the male gametophyte is totally lived separately. Clear? Now here we talk about the sex organ. As you know that the strobili or the cones are there. Okay, so the gametophyte bear the male sex organs called the antheridia and the female sex organs called the archegonia. Okay, and the antheridium is sessile and surrounded by a single layered jacket. Clear? So remember, this jacket like structure is present around this one. Okay, and the archegonium is the flask shaped and it is partially embedded in nature. Okay, if you observe, then this is the strobili or the cone like structure. Here you can find at the apical, these are the phylloid structure, leafy structure. These are the microsporophyll and this is the megasporophyll. Clear? Microsporophyll will have microsporangium, megasporophyll will have megasporangium. Clear? So here it will produce the microspores and it will produce the macrospores. Okay, and it will responsible for the production of the male and sporophytes again. Clear? Now then we turn to the fertilization. The water is required for the transfer of the anthrozoids, and the male gamete releases from the antheridia and reach to the mouth of archegonium. Clear? As you know that these are also somewhat like the amphibian in nature. Okay, anthrozoids which are flagellated structure, and this swims with the help of this flagella in the water who carry them from male to female reproductive organs. Okay, and the fusion of male gamete with the egg present in the archegonium results in the formation of zygote. Now by the formation of zygote again they will re-obtain the sporophytic phase, that is the diploid phase. Okay, and the zygote therefore produces a multicellular well differentiated sporophyte, and which is the dominant phase of the pteridophytes. Okay, so the fertilization takes place by the fusion of the male and female gamete. As we talked earlier, it is the oogamous type in nature where the female gamete is larger, non-motile and oval in shape. Clear? Now then the embryo. The fertilization produces zygote that undergoes division to produce the embryo, and the development of the zygote into the young embryo takes place within the female gametophyte only, and this event is a precursor of the seed habit and considered as an important step in the evolution. Okay, so this is the primitive stage of the seed formation where you can see that in the female gametophyte the zygote will form. This zygote goes under the mitotic division and form a multicellular embryo, and this embryo is covered by the gametophytic tissue. Clear? So this is just considered the beginning, or it is considered the precursor or the initiation of the process of formation of the seed. Okay, now here we are talking about the economic importance of the pteridophytes. Clear? So pteridophytes are a good source of food for animals, just like the sporocarps of marsilii is edible, and Angiopteris and Alsophila is also starchy pits eaten by the natives of Australia. Clear? Then the ferns protect the soil from erosion by providing a good cover on the hilly slopes and other fragile places. Okay, you can see that these are basically grows on the somewhat the temperature is very less in nature. Okay, so they just cover the layer of this outer surface of the soil. Okay, So they just become green in nature, and this way they are also responsible to hold the soil. So this way they protect from the erosion. Clear? Then the equisetum stems have the rough surfaces and they are used in scrubbing and polishing. Clear? Very fine and smooth rough surfaces. Clear? So the scrubbers can be made by this one thing. Even for polishing the hard surface or the smooth surfaces can be used. Okay. And the azolla is a water fern, has a symbiotic association with the nitrogen fixing cyanobacterium, anabina and the azole. Okay. It is cultured in paddy fields to harbor nitrogen fixing bacterium, and this act is a biofertilizer. Okay. This azolla and anabina, these are basically used to grow where in the paddy fields. Clear? Where in this paddy field they used to fix the nitrogen. Okay, and it is considered the biofertilizers. Clear? Then the rhizomes and the petioles of Dryopteris are used to produce the this is the anthelmintic drugs. The roots of adentum can cure the throat infections. Lycopodium is used in the treatment of the rheumatism and the disorders of the lungs and kidneys. Clear? That means the infections, the swelling, okay, and the respiratory problems can be cured by this one. Okay, and the ferns are also grown as ornamental plant for their graceful plant bodies. Okay, so this is the economic importance of this one, the Pteridophytes. Okay, now here we can take a look of differences between the Bryophytes and the Terridophytes. Clear? So in Bryophyte the main plant body is Gametophyte, while in the Terridophyte the main plant body is the Sporophyte. The Gametophytes are haploid and the Sporophytes are the diploid one. Clear? And here is the Bryophytes are the non-vascular tissue and the Terridophytes are the vascular tissue. Okay, this in the Bryophytes the Sporophyte is parasitic over the Gametophyte, while the Sporophyte is independent of Gametophyte. You know that as the spores will form, that will releases out and it will develop as a independent one after the germination. Clear? Now then in the Bryophytes, if you observe, the plant body can be thallus or foliose. Foliose means the leafy nature, and in this one it is differentiated into stem, leaves and root. The clear-cut distinction of the labor and work is observed in the Terridophytes. The true stem and the leaves are not present, while here the clear-cut distinction is observed. The roots are absent, rhizoids are present. So, okay, rhizoids are just consider the beginning of the roots. Clear? Which present at the lower surface of the prothallus. They are unicellular thread-like structure which is responsible for the absorption of the water. Clear? The 6 organs are stalked in nature, and here they are sessile. Okay, and here the wall of the archegonial neck is 5 to 6 rows, while here they are only having 4 cells, neck cells in the female reproductive organ. Clear? This is the basic difference between the Bryophytes and Terridophytes. Clear? Now we are going to discuss the second category of the which one? That is the Tracheophyte, that is the Gymnosperm. Okay, the word itself giving you the meaning. Gymnosperm actually is derived from the Greek word gymnos and sperma. Gymnos means the naked and the sperma means the seed. Clear? So what is the meaning of Gymnosperm? The category of the plants having the naked seed. Naked seed means what? There is absence of the which one thing? That is seed coat around the seed. Clear? Now, so these are the plants in which the ovules are not enclosed by any ovary wall and remain exposed, and both before and after the fertilization. Okay, and these are small groups of seed plants which are represented by only 900 living species, right? And unlike Bryophytes and Terridophytes, in Gymnosperm the male and the female gametophyte do not have an independent free living existence, and they remain within the sporangia written on the Sporophytes. Clear? So there is no clearly distinction in the Sporophyte and the Gametophytes. Clear? The Sporophyte is the main plant body. Gametophyte grows on the sporophytic bodies only. They are not having their separate or the self existence there. Okay. Now we are talking about the habitat. So these plants are mostly found in the colder parts of the northern hemisphere, where they form extensive forest, okay. And the number of gymnosperms are now known as the ornamental, like the ginkgo and the thuja and the araucaria, okay. So these are quite used for the increasing the beauty of the places, clear. Now we are talking about the external features, morphology. So this gymnosperm include the medium sized trees or tall trees and shrubs, okay, and the giant redwood trees, that is squia, is one of the forest tree up to 100 meter in size, and the species of the gentum are woody climbers, okay, and the smallest gymnosperm is Zamia pygmea, okay, which reaches a height of hardly 25 centimeter. So such a great variety in the height is observed, okay, and many of the gymnosperm live for more than 4,000 years, likewise the pine and the redwood squia is there. So this is the basic fact about the morphological features. Now here we are talking about the characteristic features of this one. So these are perennial woody trees or shrubs and the xerophytic in nature, okay. So what you learn? Perennial. What is the meaning of perennial? That means they will continue their survival for years of years. As you learn in the previous slide, the life cycle they may survive for 4,000 years also, clear. And they have woody trees or shrubs, okay. That means the branching of the main stem is observed. They also have the wood, that means the mechanical tissue is there. This is the most important adaptation for their survival, and they are xerophytic in nature, okay. That means now the life is completely shifted from water to land, and even in the mesophytic condition to the dry areas they can survive, right. The plant body is sporophyte and they differentiate into root, stem and leaves. Of course they are tracheophyte, that means the clear cut distinction is observed, and this subdivision includes the vascular and the naked seed plants, okay. Two basic features are there, the vascular tissue is there and now seeds are also present, but they are not remain covered by the coating around it, clear. The vascular bundle consists of the xylem and phloem, but the xylem is devoid of vessels and phloem is that of companion cell, clear. A well developed vascular tissue is there, but what is the speciality? The speciality is that xylem is lacking vessels and phloem is lacking companion cell, clear. Then the reproductive part borne in the form of the cones or strobilus. Then the male cone contains the several microsporophylls and the microsporangia on their undersurface, and the female cone contains many megasporophylls with one to several naked ovules. Remember, the male and female cones are separate, clear. They are having sporophylls, clear. The male cone contains microsporophylls and the female cone contains megasporophylls, and remember the reproductive structure present under the surface of this sporophylls, clear. So remember this fact, they are present where? At the lower surface of this one thing, clear. Now, and inside the microsporangium, microspores or pollen grains are formed by the meiosis division of special cell and which germinate to produce the male gametes, clear. So male gametes are haploid, they form in the microsporophylls, okay. Now, and the female gametophyte develop inside the ovule and contains two or more archegonia at the anterior end, right. The pollination is anemophilous in nature, that means here no need of water, the male gametes are carried out, what are these only? Pollen grains are carried out from male to female reproductive organ with the help of wind only, clear. Now the pollen grains germinate to form the pollen tube on female cone. Now after pollination and produce the male gametes which fuses with the female gamete to form the zygote, and the embryo develop from the zygote and ovule along with embryo form the seed and we germinate to form the new plant, clear. This is generally the fertilization and the fusion and the formation of the embryo, clear. The male gamete is just reaches to the female gamete with the help of that pollen tube, okay, no direct entry, clear. Then later on this male gamete will fuse with the female gamete ovule and form the zygote. This zygote okay, as we observe that because of the fusion of the male and female gamete, that zygote is formed, then this zygote undergoes in the mitotic cell division to form the embryo. This embryo develops inside the ovule, and ovule is surrounded by the that ovary, clear, and finally it will form the seed. So seed is developed in the ovary, but it is not surrounded by any protective cover. So that's why we call it the gymnosperm, that is the seed without the protective covering around it, clear. Now then the secondary growth is present. What is the meaning of secondary growth? The growth who is responsible to increase in the girth, not for the primary development, clear. And basically for the secondary growth they needed the secondary tissue, clear, and this is the secondary cambium is there, okay. Now then the usually polyembryon is found in the seed. The polyembryon means what? More than 2 embryos are present in the same ovary or in the same seed, that is called as the polyembryony. It is one of the advantage and the adaptation for the development of this one thing, clear. Then Archegonia lack neck canal cells, clear. Just like the Pteridophytes, okay, this neck canals are totally absent, okay. Now the embryo bear the 2 or more cotyledons, so that is the speciality of the this one. Now we are talking about now the plant body. The taproots are present for the proper anchorage to heavy plants, clear. Now one of the special feature, only one varieties of the roots are there, and that is the taproot, clear. It goes deeper, it becomes branched in nature, so that's why it is responsible for holding that soil very properly, clear. The root in some genera have the fungal association in the form of the mycorrhiza, okay, as we talked earlier, the symbiosis, clear. So here an association of the fungus and the root cell is called as the mycorrhiza, clear. While in some other cases like the cycas, some specialized root called carolite, the roots are associated with the nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria like the anabina, and the nostoc is also there, clear. So one side there is the association between the fungus and the root, okay, and second side there is the nitrogen fixing bacteria is also there, okay. Now the stems are branched or the unbranched in nature, and the leaves may be simple or compound, okay. Then the main leaf is just divided into its pinnet like structure, that is called the compound one, okay. Sorry. Now if we are talking about the Archegonia, the megaspore mother cell thus undergoes in the meiotic division and forming the 4 megaspore. Remember, the haploid megaspores are there. What is the number? 4 megaspores are there, and out of which one is enclosed within the megasporangium and that develops into a multicellular female gametophyte bearing 2 or more archegonia of female sex organs, clear. Now then when we talk about the sex organ, the multicellular female gametophyte is also retained within the megasporangium, okay, and which is responsible to grow the ovule, right. Now the fertilization, the air current required for the transport of male gametes, and the male gametes are carried to the archegonia, okay, and then this that the tube like structure like the pollen tube and the discharge their content near the mouth of the archegonia, and this is called the Cyphenogaming, okay. A siphon like structure, that means the tubular structure is produced by that male gamete or gametophyte, and it goes to the archegonial place for the fertilization and fusion, okay. Then we talk about the seed. After the fertilization, the zygote develop into an embryo and the ovules into the seeds, clear. That means that ovule will turn into the seed which is present in the ovary, and the seeds contain food laden tissue, that is called the endosperm, okay. We know that the endosperm is present inside the seed, and this endosperm is responsible for nourishing the growing embryo at the time of the development. Clear? It lies naked or exposed, and the endosperm provide the nourishment for growth of seedling at the time of the seed germination. So this also one is the adaptation for the survival and the dominance of the gymnosperm over this one thing. Clear? And here the examples are Cycas, Pinus, Ginkgo, and the Ephedra, Gentum, and the Vaucheria, and the Cedrus, and the Abies is there. Okay. Now take a look of differences between the Microsporophyll and the Megasporophyll. Clear? This Microsporophyll, it will be a Microsporangia, Megasporophyll will surely be a Megasporangia. Okay. It contains the numerous microspore while it contains one megaspore. Okay, remember the microspores are released from this Microsporophyll while the megaspores retain inside the Megasporangia, and they just waiting there for the arrival of the microspores and the fusion. Clear? Now then here we are talking about the classification of the gymnosperm. It is mainly divided into two classes, and some of the scientists may also divide it into four classes too, but here we are considering this one. The Cycadopsida. Okay, this Cycadopsida is also called as the cycads. The plant body is small and unbranched in nature, remember. Okay, and the large compound leaves are found there. Okay, xylem and phloem area is less than the pith and cortex area. That means in the pericycle region in the center, pith and the cortical area is very well developed in comparison of the vascular tissue, and these are ornamental plant grown in the gardens. Clear? Now the second we talk about the Coniferopsida, or it is called the conifers. These plants are big and branch trees. Okay, in the xylems or phloems area is more than the pith and the cortex. That means it is one of the modification for the mechanical tissue as well as the development of this one. Clear? When we talk about the difference between the gametophyte of Pteridophytes and Gymnosperm, so in gametophyte of the Pteridophytic gametophyte, clear, a distinct male gametophyte may not be present, while here in the Gymnosperm distinct male gametophyte is present. Okay, it contains an antheridium. Antheridium is absent. Clear? The male gametes are flagellated. It can be flagellated or may not be flagellated. Clear? The male gametophyte reach female gametes by the male gamete is female by the swimming in air, while here they reach through the pollen tube, or what we call that is a siphon like structure. That's why we call it the Cyphenogaming. Clear? Now then here we are talking about the economic importance of the Gymnosperm. Okay, now so the seeds of Pinus, that is the Garadinia, okay, that is simply called the chilgoza, okay, are used as a food after the roasting. Okay, and some other edible Gymnosperm plant part are endosperm of ginkgo and the seed kernel, okay, of some Cycas and gnatum, okay, and the sago grains from the stem of the Cycas, and so they are quite edible in nature. The Gymnosperm provides the softwood for the construction, plywood, and the paper industry. Clear? So it is considered the backbone of this paper industry. Clear? And even this softwood is also used for the packagings of the material. Okay, so in the packaging industries it is quite helpful. The branches of Gymnosperm trees are used as the fuel food. Okay, now the sawdust of the conifers is used in making the plastics and the linoleum. Okay, and the resin is a semi-fluid created by the special tubes of a number of conifers, and this resin is distilled to obtain the turpentine and the resin. The turpentine is used for thinning paints and the varnishes. Okay, and the resin is used for the sealing joints and the wheel greens and the preparation of the writing papers and the oil clothes, and also this one thing. Clear? So basically this resin and turpentine, okay, this two thing is obtained from this Gymnosperm. It is very important in the plywood industry, and this one thing, this resin is used to adhesive and to just cover any surface as a that is the anti hygroscopic one. Okay, so that means it can be waterproof in nature also. Okay, now, and the sealing joints, and this one is also produced. Then there is the ephedrine, and an antibiotic is obtained from the ephedra. It is used for the curing the respiratory problems and asthma like features. Okay, the Taxol is an anti-cancer drug obtained from the Taxus, right? And this, the leaves of the cycas are used in making the broom and the rope. Okay, and the carcinalis is used for making the mats. Clear? So this mats, this brooms and the ropes is also made by this one thing. So it is quite helpful for the small scale industries. Okay, and it is very useful in our day to day life. Clear? So this all about the which one, that is the Pteridophytes and the Gymnosperm. Clear? We in general talk about this life cycle and the what is the next one, that is the mode of life and the lifespan, and also this one thing, reproduction in general. Clear? But it is also advised you to take or consider a complete example of the life cycle of any specimen feature of this Gymnosperm and this one Pteridophytes. Clear? So just consider it from your book, reference books, and just learn a complete life cycle. Okay, their diagrams and the proper way of their continuing their life cycle. Clear? So this is all about today's discussion. I just want to express my hearty thank you, okay, for your patience and listening me carefully. Clear? Hope so. Very soon we will meet in the real classroom, from this virtual classroom to the real classroom. So be ready for it. Okay, and find out all the problems and your queries about it. Okay, so thank you very much. See you in the next video. Thank you.